Okay. All right, all right. Welcome, 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 Prentis Hemphill. It is so exciting to be with you here today. Thank you for joining me. How are you today?
I'm really good. I'm so happy to see you, Markasa. It's been a minute, and I'm happy to be here with the African American Roundtable too. Excited.
Great. Well, for folks who don't know, I met Prentice through Bold, Black Organizing Leadership and Dignity, an amazing political home of mine and so many other amazing folks across the country and probably internationally, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so it's super exciting to be in the space and share some space to talk about Prentis Hemphill, the book. We'll talk about it a little bit. But before we get there, I wanted to invite Prentice to really create a space for us to get grounded in this moment as we open up this conversation. So hopefully you all who are watching and joining us will be open to this, or, do whatever else you need to take care of yourself while we move through this practice and then move right into the questions.
That's great. We'll just do a brief kind of settling in. So, um, just let yourself arrive. Arrive to your chair. See if how you're sitting is comfortable, if there's any adjustments you want to make. And we always talk about just bringing yourself to this moment. So if there's parts of you or your attention that are in the next room, that are in earlier today, that are even in tomorrow, we want to just start to pull our attention back to this moment into ourselves. And it can also help to just take a few deep breaths so we can do that together to drop back into ourselves. So we can inhale, maybe even hold for a second, and then exhale. And hold on the end of the exhale for a moment. Another breath in, hold, exhale, and hold at the bottom. I'll just do one more. Inhale, hold, exhale, and really let something go. And hold it at the bottom. Breath is one of these ways that, we can really get present easily if we just start to pay attention to our breath and start to invite our breath deeper into our lungs, deeper into our bellies. And we'll just really quickly here feel ourselves kind of connected to the earth. And let yourself stretch up to your full length. We talk about this as kind of how we feel our dignity. So see if you can let yourself be in more dignity. Something in the day kind of made you feel small. See if you can just be really who you are. And then feel into your width if something's making you shrink or want to close in. See if you can just like let yourself out a little bit more. You can wiggle, you can open your arms. You can just breathe, relax, open. And this is how we feel belonging with each other. We soften here. And then front to back. So feeling your back self, maybe how you're landing on the chair. Feeling yourself in the front. And just letting yourself feel where you've come from, where you're going. That all of that is here with you right now. And we really do this just to bring our bodies present into the moment, into the conversation. Even though we can't see each other, I like to just invite people to bring their full selves in. That's how we can really connect with each other. That's how when we hear content, instead of it just being information, it can actually settle into our pores and into our skin. So anytime you need to over the course of this conversation, just settle into your breath. You can settle into your length, width, depth, and just arrive here a little bit more. Thanks, Markesa.
Prentice, I really needed that. All right. So, again, super excited to talk about this. But first, I just want to create some space to just give you an opportunity to share a little bit, maybe that was not in your bio with folks. Who is Prentice? Share with us more.
Yeah, let's see. I'm an embodiment teacher, so the short of that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's that I care about our healing. And I know that in order for us to heal, we have to center our bodies and not just our thinking. And that's what I spend most of my time thinking about, studying, practicing, is how we heal and how we heal through the body. I come from an organizing background. That's something I deeply care about, is how we create change, build power for our communities and for our people. And I think the other big thing, I'm a parent, so everything I thought I knew, I'm having to reevaluate, learn it all again in a different way. That feels like a big part of my identity right now. Um, yeah, that's me. I'm from Texas. I live in North Carolina, so I'm born and raised in the South, and that's also really meaningful for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm so excited that we get to share parenting.
Yes,
Yeah, and that you're recognizing even early on that there's so much that you thought you knew that actually maybe they can teach you.
that's right. I mean,
Mhm.
she's my greatest teacher right now. She teaches me all the time. All the time.
I love that. I love that. From the mouth of babes, even
That's
teaching
right.
us.
That's
I love
right.
it.
Hmm.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about embodiment. Can you share just a little bit more about what actually is embodiment?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, the key to understanding embodiment is right there in the word. Embodiment has body right in the center of it. And, embodiment for me is how we learn to listen to the body. So you can imagine that there are, I often say there are ways that we show up, that we think we're showing up, that are different than how we actually show up. So if you ever think you're doing something and you don't understand, well, why are people responding to me like this? Or why am I not, experiencing the things that I want to experience? There can be a difference between how we think we are and how we actually are. And embodiment is kind of that work of understanding, how are you actually showing up in the world? How are you moving, behaving? How do you feel? What's your mood? And learning to recognize that and build some awareness around that. Because our thinking, our thoughts, our brains can have a lot of ideas about what's going on, and then our bodies can be doing something totally different. So I work with people to build awareness around what they actually do and how, many of us have been trained through our families, through our communities to feel certain ways, to be certain ways. We're trained by this society to be certain ways, to feel some things and not feel other things. So I work with people to develop their awareness of what they actually feel, how they actually act in the world, and through their bodies process the things that they've not yet processed. So that may be grief, it may be sadness, it may be trauma, but letting it move through actually the sensations of the body so that people can feel new and different things. Because sometimes we can get stuck in the past, and that's not just a thinking thing, it's how we feel throughout our day, it's the mood we have, how we relate to people. And so when we can process some of that stuff, we can also open ourselves to new experiences, new feelings, new skills and capacities. We can lead in different ways. So I work with leaders especially to open up new ways of being. So, but it's all centered around the body, and I think that's really the key thing to understand.
So delicious. It makes me like so curious. I actually used the prompt at our staff meeting that I led a couple weeks ago, inviting people. I think it was a question that you asked around boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, do you know when it's time to walk away? Do you know your body
Right.
telling you?
Right.
And so it was a really good prompt for me, an invitation for me to pause and to feel. So this is just making me more curious about how I can continue to slow down and just like feel, process, all of those things. So this is great. This
Yep.
is
Yep.
okay. So just a reminder, I need to keep on doing it. All right.
Me
All right.
too.
Okay.
Me too.
Yes, it's always a practice, right? We're continuing to
Always.
practice.
That's right.
Okay, so let's hop in. Let's hop in. So for folks that may not know, we've been sharing this in some of our marketing pieces, and also, we have it
Thank you.
on display here at the fundraiser. So the book is called "What It Takes to Heal: How
Hmm.
Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World." Tell us how this book came to fruition.
Well, the book really comes out of a decade or decade plus of my work and my journey. So I, got politicized at some point, especially around issues of mass incarceration, police violence, and um, that work really mattered to me because I could see how prisons were shaping our communities, our lives, were taking people away from each other, breaking up families. And, um, I think like many of us, I had experiences in my own family of the way incarceration can really tear through a family. So, I was deeply concerned with those issues. And as I was doing that work and organizing, I noticed that a lot of us who were coming to the work had these stories and experiences, were, living it or had experienced it. And there wasn't place at that time for people to kind of process what they were holding, and what they were holding and the stories and the pain they would bring to the work. Now, sometimes it was, people bring their stories and it's like a testimony. You need people to share their stories. And at the same time, some people, if they hadn't processed or had space to process their pain, it could show up in anger, irritability, not able to focus on the work, not feeling valued, all these things that would come up through relationship and through their organizing work was really about all the trauma they were holding and all the pain they were holding. And so I got really curious about why it was that in our movement work, we didn't have space for that. I'd look at elders from, I was living in Oakland at the time. I'd look at elders from the Black Panthers, for example, and they would have a lot of wisdom to share, but they'd have a lot of pain and nowhere to express that pain. So I got really curious about trauma and was lucky to live really close to a school that did embodiment work, but through a politicized lens. And when I started going to that school, I was like, oh, this is how we bring it all together. How we don't just say, you deal with your stuff over there, the real work is over here, but understanding that who we are is also the real work, because if we don't address the things that we're holding, both the beliefs and the pain, because a lot of us can still be holding on to the beliefs that we know don't serve us or don't serve our people, but they're still deeply ingrained in us because we grew up in this culture. We're kind of seeped in this culture. So we can still be acting those things out even though we don't believe them. And so that's what I mean about that separation. So, with this embodiment work, I was able to weave together understanding and practice. It's like, how do I show up living the values that I actually believe?
Mhm.
And how do I show up without my pain leading the way and tearing through relationships and tearing through the work? So I started studying somatics then. And at the time, honestly, Marquesa, it was not popular. I get to go around the world now talking about it, but back then nobody cared. Everybody was like, be quiet about all this healing stuff. It's not the real work.
What's
Um,
somatics?
exactly. That was my whole journey. But eventually, when especially like when Trayvon was killed, that sort of I had become a therapist at that time, but a lot of organizations were calling me in to do things with membership or calling me in to do conflict work. So I started to get called in on these kind of one-off things until I started to understand, oh, this is a needed thing in movement. I'm getting called in here and there, but we really need this capacity. So I started really trying to organize my work and my thinking around, healing justice, which is a term Kara Page offered. And I just started offering it into Black movement. I started teaching with BOLD, as you mentioned, Black Organizing for Leadership and Dignity. I was one of the early members of Black Lives Matter and brought healing justice into the core of that. But it was my commitment for a long time. So the book is really all the learnings I took from especially that decade of practicing in Black movement and saying, okay, from what I can tell, these are the things we need to be practicing. These are the things we need to be doing for internally in our relationships and in our organizations. And I wanted to offer that back because not everybody can come to a training. Not everybody, will listen to a speech or a talk. So I thought, here's another avenue where I can share those lessons and they can reach more people. And that was really my goal.
Whew, so glad that I brought my paper and my pen, okay? Because I am taking notes, so I'm hearing all types of jewels. First, thank you. Thank you for continue to be curious. Thank you for the
Mm,
things that you learn. Thank you for even when it wasn't popular, like you said, and people were like, "Hey, what do you, we don't know what you're talking about. Like, we don't need that." Thank you for continuing to lean
wow.
into that because it is what we needed and it's what we still need.
Thank you.
Um, my goodness, who we are is also the work.
Mm-hmm.
How do I show up without my pain leading?
Yep.
This
Yep.
work is both internally, relationally, and
Yep.
organizationally that we need to be doing. So I'm gonna
Yep.
keep dropping, going back and dropping these dimes that you're dropping, just so folks making sure that they're hearing it. I hope they maybe brought their notebooks or their phones to take some
Mm,
notes, or are already curious about how can I get the book. So let's keep
mm,
going.
yeah.
Um, First of all, if you can really quickly let folks know, some folks may not know what somatics is. And then
Yeah.
following that, the question is, what is a healing home and why is healing so important in this moment?
I love that question. So somatics is, I kind of use the word somatics and embodiment interchangeably, but somatics is kind of the study of all of this stuff around the body, how the body experiences trauma, how the body heals from trauma, how the body changes and grows. Somatics is kind of the study of that. I was trained in somatics. There are practices. There's neuroscience you need to understand. There's understanding the anatomy of a body. There's understanding trauma in the body, and there's understanding practices that help people relieve their distress. And so all of that I would say is somatics. I call it embodiment because I also think this wave of somatics is really cool, but I also understand that our people have been doing what we call somatics for a long time. So I talk about embodiment is a term that I use more broadly to talk also about culture. The way we dance is to me is a somatic practice. Even when somebody laying hands on you, to me is a somatic practice. It's all of
Mm,
these things to me are how we work with the body and work with the life in the body. And I think there's things we've been doing over time that wouldn't be in the official um, canon or school of somatics, but
mhm.
are actually the original somatic practices. So I use the term embodiment to nod to that wisdom that already is in us. Um, and then what was your question? It was so good too, and then I lost
Yeah.
it.
No, you don't have to lose it. It's here. What is a healing home
Oh
and why
yeah.
is healing so important in this moment?
Yeah. So healing home is this term that we've started using because, we know what a political home is. I mean, you mentioned
Mhm,
Bold as being one of your political homes. It's a place where you develop, where you develop your analysis, you develop your praxis. It's a place that we return to, are a part of, and they're really important for us to develop over time.
mhm,
And like I mentioned to you, when I started doing this work, it wasn't like people were like, please do healing. Please bring that to movement. People were like, keep that out of here.
mm,
But I wanted to, talk about healing home as a place that is not a political home. Our organization, I run an organization called the Embodiment Institute. It's not a place where you're going to go for straight up political development,
mhm,
political education. You need to go to a political home for that. But it's a place where you can do human development
mm,
with a political analysis. So we focus on understanding the body, trauma healing, relationships, and we do that through a political lens, but we are not a political education space. We are a
mhm.
place for healing, development, and transformation. That is our focus, and it is our contribution to movement. And we think that is an important, if we think about what a vibrant movement requires, it requires base building organizations of all kinds. It requires organizations that can, run and win campaigns. And I think it also requires organizations that attend to our development and healing as human beings. That's part of a ecosystem.
Yeah.
So that's what a healing home is for us. And that's what we believe our contribution is to our movements into this time. Um, Healing is so important. Okay, right now because this is going to be a heavy answer. So let me take my time with it, actually. Um,
I'm leaning in.
yeah, because it's a big one. We are facing a lot right now. We are up against a lot. But not only that, we're currently experiencing a lot. I mean, people are struggling financially. Um, it's a really we are in a really hard place. And we've historically been in a hard place. So we're kind of like compressed in a way.
Mhm,
But the challenges that we're facing on every level, the challenge we're facing to our organizing, the challenge we're facing just for to live are
mhm,
increasing on every level. I mean, climate, national politics, local politics, international politics. I mean, what we're seeing, the escalation of war and violence, and it's incredible. I mean, we're in an incredible time in terms of the kind of pressures we're facing. And what I see is that in this time, we are not getting more grounded. We are
mm,
not getting more clear. We are not getting more discerning. It makes sense because these are scary times. But I think we are getting more fearful, more paranoid, more divisive, um, less present, more
mm,
distracted by our phones, more reactive. Our fuses are getting shorter. This is what I see. And I see that, and I'm looking at what we're facing, and I see our capacity to be with our own feelings and to be with each other shrinking
mm,
as the challenge grows. That's kind of how I assess it. So I feel like this work is critical. It's necessary for us to create the kind of spaciousness in ourselves so
mhm,
that I can know what's going on with me and be responsible for me, so that I can be with you in relationship and say, we can be encouraging towards each other, we can be accountable towards each other, we can work through hard things, we trigger each other less because we've worked out more of our stuff. And so we're
mhm,
able to stay together when the pressure comes, when things get hard, when the funding gets cut, or when, someone in our community is hurt, or
mhm,
whatever it might be. We're able to stay together a little bit longer because we have gotten more grounded, more aware, more present, and we're able to build relationships that can withstand. That to me is the key
mm,
ingredient. That's the thing that we need more than anything in this time. We don't need more distraction. We don't need more reactivity. We don't need more unprocessed fear. We need more presence. We need more rituals with each other. We need more choice. And that's really the only way, Marquesa. It's the only way I believe that we're gonna win/survive, to be perfectly honest with you.
mm.
It's that serious to me.
Yeah, yeah, we need more presence and more spaciousness
Yeah.
so that we are able to offer ourselves. And like you said, like from a grounded place, not a place where we're leading with our pain, and all of the things that we're facing. We need more presence and more spaciousness. I cannot agree with you more in all of the opportunities and the gifts that come
Yeah,
from being more present and taking the time that you need to take care of yourself first.
that's right.
Ah, you're right. That was a heavy question.
It's a good one though. It's the question.
It was. So I'm reading your book and there's a synopsis of some questions that I want to share. What would it do to movements to our what would it do to movements to our society and culture to have the principles of healing at the very center? And what does it do to have healing at the center of every structure and everything we create?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a way, this is like old wisdom that we lost sight of,
Mm,
which is like whatever you take from the world, you give back. You don't just have your hand out, you also offer a hand too.
Mhm.
And to me, the way that our society and our world increasingly is structured is that you take, 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 take. You don't know where things come from. You don't know how the food showed up to your grocery store. You don't know how your clothes are made. You don't know where the trees are that where they're from that built your house. You don't know where your computer, as much as we're understanding about what's happening on the continent, what's happening in Congo and how that what's in our
Mm.
phones. So I say all that to say this extractive culture that takes, takes, takes doesn't think about healing, doesn't think about repair, doesn't think about regeneration, doesn't think about offering back. The core, the logic at the center of our society is extraction, is profit, is more, 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 more. No matter what, we can eat up our planet until we squeeze out the last resource for more. And I'm saying healing at the center of culture is that other thing that we know, I think deep down, we know you don't take without giving. You offer into the flow or else we're all going to run out.
Mm.
So, and I think the other part of it is that we know that human beings will experience pain. I had an organizer ask me once, "Do you think when we win, there'll be no more trauma?" And I said, "No, I don't think that, because I think people will still die. You know,
Mhm.
um, there'll still be natural disasters. There'll still be pain that's so big that it's hard for us to process. But the thing is that we won't build like 3-day bereavement policies behind that. We'll give people ritual and a space where we can collectively grieve. There's so much for us to grieve. So a culture that's centered around what it means to be human and healing will have rituals for the human things we experience. We won't just kind of try to hide the humanness away. Like get over that as quickly as possible.
Mm.
Okay, you had a baby, get back to work as soon as possible. Oh, somebody died, get back to work as soon as possible. A real healing culture would say, these are some of the most important passages that a human being can experience. It fundamentally changes the fabric of our culture, our community, when someone comes or someone goes. And we would build ritual around that
Mhm.
so that we don't have to suppress and hide these big emotions that we have, that there's a place for it in the center. So a healing culture to me recognizes what makes us human and builds space for that rather than a culture that tries to make human beings be as much machine as possible and hide the parts of them that make them human.
Goodness. We need a culture around what it means to simply be a human.
Yeah.
Can we make some space for who exactly we are?
Yeah. Exactly.
Human beings
Yep.
versus, of course, the doings.
That's right.
It just sounds like more spaciousness is needed to help create some of that along with healing. Um, how do you think healing can reshape our world towards justice?
I was saying to an elder of mine last year, I was like, I'm really interested in the politics that a healing body would generate. So, I
Mhm.
think the politics of a wounded or fearful body are the politics that we are experiencing right now. But what kind of politics emerge from a body that is committed to healing? What kind of structures will we put in place? What kind of institutions will we build, et cetera? Um, I think healing is I think it's ultimately what a lot of us are trying to do. We don't call it that, but when we're talking about change conditions, we're talking about people being able to breathe easier. We're talking about families being able to stay together. We're talking about love being able to move freely. We're talking about food that is not poisonous to us that we're able to eat. We're talking about drinkable water. Those things to me are healing things. Now,
Mhm.
they're also conditions change, whatever we want to call them. But to me, movement is about healing and restoration for us and for the future us's. So that's healing is actually at the core of it for me. And then our personal healing gives us a window into what liberation could be like.
Mm.
So when we are present, when we are doing our work, when we are doing our work with people, it's not that we don't make mistakes. It's that we can be met with compassion, with understanding. We can offer accountability, and that to me gives us the like a felt sense of what freedom could be like. It's in those moments. And I think we need those moments to keep us going. We need moments where we're loved and accepted. We need moments where we can change with each other. And then we go, oh, that's the thing. That's what we're trying to build. That's what we're moving towards. It's like a little sampler. Um, I think we also heal to open up those pockets and multiply those pockets of healing and transformation between us. And if we can accumulate enough of those, both in our interpersonal space, but in our conditions, I think then we're on our way.
I mean, even just you talking about it, just like was exerting some joy out of my spirit. Like, that's it. Like you said, we are all doing this healing. It's the love, it's the being seen, it's the acknowledgement. It's all of those things that get us closer, like you said. So I was feeling it like,
Yeah.
yes, yes, and it feels good. I can sense it, even you talking
Right.
about and just thinking about ways that I have experienced it here at our organization,
Mm,
how we are trying to move in those directions, how we're trying to create an environment and a culture where we love, we're trying to create space to be, we're trying to build the relationships, we're trying to
I love
organize,
that.
we're nurturing, like all of
Yep.
those things. And so that leads to my next question. Here at the African American Roundtable, we call ourselves AART. We work to organize, nurture, and transform Black leaders in service of Black liberation. What advice would you give our staff, members, and overall Milwaukee community who may feel exhausted or overwhelmed, or those who may not know connection between healing and our work?
Yeah. First of all, shout out to Milwaukee. Never been there, but
You gotta come see
yeah,
us.
I gotta come see you. That's one of those places where you really got to get an invitation because you don't just stroll through Milwaukee. So,
Okay,
you
this
know,
is your invitation, Princess. When you're
okay,
ready, come in the summertime. I'm not gonna invite you when it's cold,
okay,
but
I'm not
come in
gonna
the
come then.
summertime and we'll take you some places. This is your invitation.
Okay, all right. Summertime Milwaukee trip sounds great. Um, I think to the team, what I want to offer is like, I know that all of this can seem really big. And the number one thing, when I'm working with people, they're like, I don't want to feel these things. I can see that there's stuff that's coming up, but I don't want to feel that. It's too painful. I, I think that what I want to offer people is just start very small. To be compassionate with yourself enough to start very small. You don't have to dive into the deep end of the pool. You don't have to feel the worst thing, but start small and it'll expand your capacity. So, I'm also a parent. I just have one. I know people have multiples, but big question I get from parents is like, when am I going to do this? And I look, it's a real question, but there
Mm-hmm.
are 5 minutes that you might subtract from your Instagram time or your TikTok time that you could just take to be quiet, to even just, wrap yourself up in a blanket and rest, to do some reflection, to be in whatever practice, prayer, meditation, whatever works for you, but taking those few minutes to allow integration, even just from your day. What happened
Mm-hmm.
today? What did you feel? What did you move through? Because sometimes we have those kind of contractions from our day and then we go to bed and we don't sleep well or we wake up and it's still there. But 5 minutes just sitting with what's in your body can help clear it out and you can sleep better. You know what I mean? You can wake up and be more present. So I just want to offer start with a very small practice. Start with a very small, compassionate practice towards yourself. Carve out just a little bit of space. And as you get consistent with that, you'll notice that you can find and see other pockets of time or organize your life in a different way to create more pockets. But start very small. I'm not asking people to start as, in the worst and the most challenging stuff, but just start small, be compassionate, be forgiving, give yourself the love that you're longing to receive.
Thank you. I can't wait for the staff if they're listening. to hear that and receive that as a gift from you. What would you say to folks who are maybe not necessarily in the work, but folks who are just like in the community, whether they're doing the work or not?
I mean, honestly, it's the same thing, but I think the other thing that I would offer to people is be attentive to how you do relationship. I mean, you mentioned my boundaries work. I think boundaries is a really important place. Sometimes we can be acting out um, things from our past in our present relationships, and it can be a huge energy drain. It can suck our energy away from us to be in those patterns and those habits that are really about the past. And so, I just offer to people to pay attention to how you're doing relationship. Are you overextending? Are you like doing too much? Are you like trying to take care of everybody else but always neglecting yourself? Are you not actually leaning into the support that you have? Maybe there's people that would show up for you or would have your back, and maybe you move away from them because you don't feel like you deserve it. But trying new things out in our relationship, stepping into new patterns and new habits can be really scary, but it's really worth it because it helps us break out of the thing that maybe we've been trained to do in a lot of ways. So I would say that, and that with our spouses, our loved ones, our friends, our kids, being attentive to how we do relationship because we could be activating somebody else's trauma. We could be playing out our own trauma. And trauma is this thing where it doesn't just stay in us, that we can be activating somebody else's trauma and then they go activate somebody else's trauma and it starts to be this like domino effect. So the more we can pay attention, be aware, take our time, be grounded, breathe in relationships, take a moment of pause and reflection so that we can choose a different path.
Mm,
That's also a part of freedom. That's also a part of practicing all this is being aware of how we are with each other.
that was so good. I mean, I just want to invite folks for just a second to just receive that.
Mm,
Mm.
it's so important.
It is like a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we can see this playing out in our community trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, recycling trauma on top of
Yeah.
trauma. We see that in our communities, which causes the hopelessness, which causes the making
Yes.
decisions out of trauma. And then you go and you cause more harm because of the things that hasn't been healed or the areas where you haven't been tended to. All of the
Yep.
things, yeah, it's a matter of life and death out in these streets, like
That's right. That's
for
right.
real.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we just have a few more questions. This has been so good. I can't wait to get back into my book. The conversation will be aired again. It's happening right now at our fundraiser. Can you speak to the importance of supporting organizations like the African American Roundtable working towards liberation in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, this is like my this is like the most important thing for me to show up for people who are showing up for us. And, I think all the things that we've talked about, all the challenges that we've talked about, the only way to face them is by doing this work, by doing our work, but also by being together in organization, by building power, by connecting with our people, giving our people a place to land, a place to grow. So, community work is it. It is it. It's what we need. It's what we have to invest in. It's what we have to support. And so, the work that y'all are doing at the African American Roundtable, I've known Markasa for years. I just want to lift y'all up and encourage you and say this work is so needed, so necessary. It is the heart of healing work in a way. It's the heart of healing our communities and supporting our leaders. So I just send y'all lots of encouragement. I'm so grateful I get to be with y'all today and much success on this fundraiser. You deserve all the support.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing those kind words. So great that we were able to bring your voice into Milwaukee. So, as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to add, you want to share, you want to lift up from this amazing book? There's so much wisdom in it. It's so much wisdom in it. Is there anything else you can think of that you want to share to make sure that we hear today?
I just, it can take people a long time to read books. It can be hard. I've had people be like, I'm getting through, it's a lot, especially because a book that has a lot of emotional content. I would just say if
Mhm.
you need a resource as you read it, you can skip ahead. I'm giving you permission to skip ahead to the last chapter on love. Um, it's me kind of paying homage to Bell Hooks, who, Black feminist writer, thinker, who talked about love in our communities and why it was so necessary and important. So, if you need something to pick you up, I would say skip ahead to the love chapter when you need to just remember that what we are trying to do through our systems change work, through our leadership work, through all of it, in my opinion, is make way for love. Make way for love to be expressed between us. That's really, we can have lots of blocks to expressing, to receiving love. But to me, that's the real goal, for everybody to feel loved, for us to be able to express love freely in our communities, because everybody that we see, everybody that we know deserves that kind of love. So that's it. Just skip ahead if you need to.
Thank you for sharing that. So now y'all have permission, don't feel bad when you're reading like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go where Prentice has invited us. Okay, so Prentice, how can folks follow you, get to know your work? Where can they find you?
Yeah. Let's see. The best place to find me, my website, prentishempill.com. You can check me out on Instagram. That's at Prentis Hemphill. I run an organization called the Embodiment Institute at theembodimentinstitute.org. And I have a podcast called Becoming the People that you can check out. I have a lot of incredible guests on there and that are diving deep with me into some of these conversations.
Awesome. So you guys heard it here first, or maybe you haven't. Maybe you heard it and already seen Prentice in all of these places. But if not, now you know all the places. I just want to give so much love, so much gratitude and appreciation again for just the gift that you are and for saying yes to this moment to share this with us in this season and this time. I think it's the right time. And the work
Mm,
that you've been doing has been necessary to get us here and to allow us to receive and open up and be curious with you and be
mm,
willing to practice together from where you are to where we are here in Milwaukee in this room with others, our staff, our family. Thank you. Thank you for
mm,
putting this down in a book. We needed it. And it
mm.
has been already such a blessing to me. And I know it's been such a blessing to the staff. So I can't wait for others to continue to join this journey, order the book, or again, maybe somebody will win the book tonight. But so excited to have spent this time with you. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Marquesa. I love seeing you shine. Best of luck to everything that you're doing. Much love.
Thank you.